Hello, Internet. You probably already know the answer to this question, but sometimes it's nice to just hear somebody else talk about it from their perspective. So basically, the reason you keep making the same mistake is because you don't have a good enough reason in your life to move past it. The thing that you're doing that you are deeming as a mistake or as something that you think you want to move past and grow past and no longer act on, the reason you haven't stopped doing it is because there's not a good enough reason. It's probably helping you in some way, and that doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean it's something you should be doing. But there's probably something in your life that needs to be addressed that this thing is masking. And it's helping you cope and it's helping you deal with it. So, there's so many different levels of severity that this can take. There's so many different ways that this type of thing can pop up in your life. But it's never going to go away until you have a reason, a really good reason. And sometimes it is too late and you don't really have a say and it kind of just ruins your life. Or it could lead to, even death. Now, I'm lucky that my vices are not going to kill me, at least quickly. Like food, for example, I'll use like a sort of surface level one. Yeah, if I eat a bunch of candy every day and eat a bunch of fast food and drink a bunch of soda and don't move, there's lots of different health complications that can come from that. And down the road, that behavior might end up killing me. But in the moment, I have anxiety or I have stress or I have emotions that are deep inside of me that I'm not fully addressing, that are coming to the surface. And in that moment, I don't have it in me to deal with those feelings. So I eat some candy and it helps me feel better in that moment. And that might help me get through to the next part of my day. And I don't have any concrete evidence fully at this point that is really leading me to stop. Like, if I was to go to the doctor and get blood tests and they told me I was pre-diabetic or something, that might be enough for somebody to, severely cut down on their sugar intake and change their diet and change their habits. The reason I use that as an example is because one of my good friends recently told me that they are pre-diabetic and this is something that they're focusing on. I have some issues with food as well, but luckily it's not to the point where it's extremely immediately detrimental to my health. Now, the other example for my own personal life that I reference a lot is smoking weed, just getting high in general. So I have this idea in my head that I want to be completely sober. I want to be completely free of any sort of drug or substance or mind-altering type of thing because I want to just be my own self as, unfiltered as I possibly can be. And any issues that come up with that, deal with them without the need for a substance. Now, I've been smoking weed and getting stoned since I was 16 years old. Actually, the first time I did, I was 14. And by the time I was 16, I was smoking regularly. And by the time I was 18, I was smoking pretty much every day, if not every day. In 2016, I took a month off. And in 2021, I took like 3 weeks off. Those are the only breaks that I've taken off the whole time. Maybe I've taken off, like 5 days or a week here and there if I'm sick or something like that. Or if I'm just like, I don't have enough money. But even then, it's like maybe I'll hang out with friends and we'll smoke or something. But I just recently took off, a little over a month. And I told myself I wanted to take like an extended break. But then some things happened in my life. I kind of started feeling some things that I was having a harder time dealing with. And I ended up smoking. And normally in the past, I would feel a lot of guilt. I would feel a lot of shame. And that sort of puts me back into this cycle. But this time, for the first time maybe ever, at least as like a conscious adult on my own, I felt like I was consciously choosing to do it. And then, it's only been a couple days since then, but I haven't smoked again since then. And at this time, I don't really feel like I need to again. And that was the biggest issue that I had with it, is it started to feel like something I didn't have control of. It started to feel like a habit more than like medicine. It didn't feel like it was helping me as much as it was hurting me. And again, the immediate health effects of it, smoking anything is not good. But also, it's like I'm not feeling the immediate effects of it. So it's hard for me to like tell myself this is the reason you need to stop if everything's going seemingly fine. But, that's what I was saying at the beginning of the video. It's like there wasn't a good enough reason for me to fully stop. And there still is not a good enough reason for me to fully stop. So until there's a good enough reason, I'm never going to fully stop. Like, that's just how it is. And some people might call that addiction. I wouldn't fully disagree with you. But I think that this applies to a lot of different things that come up in people's lives. Like, even being a workaholic. Like, people wouldn't see working hard as an addiction. They might see it as like not the healthiest thing in the world, but most people wouldn't say that if you work a lot, you're addicted to work. But some people are addicted to work because they're addicted to stress. They grew up in an environment that they were constantly stressed, and that was what became their stasis. And unless they have some sort of external stress constantly, they don't feel comfortable. And that's not always the case with workaholics. Some people are just, they want money and stuff like that. But even then, are you going to tell somebody who's working a bunch of jobs just to save money that they're addicted to work, that they're addicted to money? You're probably not going to see it that way. But as we all know, work can cause high levels of stress, and stress can affect your health. So down the road, because of your good work ethic and because of your ability to function in stress, you might end up having some serious health problems. And then it's like, was it worth it? But if you're not experiencing those problems in the moment, the idea of you being too stressed and having health problems way in the future of your life is not a good enough reason for you to stop working as hard. Now, I am so far from a workaholic. Sometimes I wish that I had more work ethic than I do, because I would probably get a lot more things done than I want to get done. But that's just not who I am. And just for the record, as always with my channel, this channel is documenting my thoughts, archiving my brain on a weekly basis so that I can reference it myself in the future. So I'm always giving advice to myself. If it helps you, that's great. But I'm not trying to lecture anybody. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I'm just expressing what I need to get out of my head. And right now, the thing I've been thinking about a lot is what I've been talking about, especially related to weed, where you might not be able to change the things in your life. If you have like behaviors that you're trying to change, you might not even actually want to change them. You might have this idealistic idea of yourself that exists in the future that doesn't actually exist because the future is never promised. And you're trying to fit your current self into a fake future version of yourself that may never exist and that may not actually even be what you want. So I think demonizing yourself and shaming yourself and guilting yourself is not the answer, because all that's going to do is send you into a cycle of shame and guilt that you may not be able to get out of. And I think this is hard, and it's been hard for me with weed especially, but I don't actually want to stop smoking. I don't actually want to stop getting stoned. So that version of in my head that I said earlier of me not being dependent on anything, not being my pure self or whatever, I don't actually want that. And that might change in the future. But right now, even with me taking all this time off from smoking, that's not something that I want. So if you don't actually want something, it's going to be really, really hard to get yourself to do it. So I think that that's worth considering for everybody, for all of their problems that they have, that they're deeming as problems. They might not actually be problems, but it might be a problem that it's not a problem, if that makes sense. Some consequences are larger than others. And that's part of why I've been stuck in this cycle with weed, is because it's not that big of a deal. Whether I smoke or not, it's really not that big of a deal for myself, for my family, for my friends, for my life as a whole. It really doesn't matter. You know what's a bigger deal that I don't even think of as a problem is spending my money frivolously. Now, part of that could be related to weed, but I don't save money. I'm really bad with money. I have credit card debt that I have not even put a dent in, and I just spend my money. Now, that's actually affecting my life. That's actually causing me to not be able to do certain things, and I'm struggling to pay bills, and I'm struggling to, I'm eating ramen and, damn near fasting because I don't have meals until I get paid. And that's all self-imposed. I'm not broke. I'm not poor. I have a very comfortable middle-class life with my partner. We're not balling, but we can pay our bills and we're fine. But I choose to spend my money stupidly without thinking about it. And that's not something I've even deemed as a problem in my own mind fully, because all my bills are paid. Like I said, I have trouble paying my bills, but that's because I'm not making enough money. I'm not making enough income as much as I'm willing to spend out my money, if that makes sense. Like sometimes I'll pay a bill late or something, but that's because I spent my money on other things and then I have to wait to get paid again, yada, yada, yada. But like I'm not like missing my rent payments or anything like that because I do make enough money where I can cover all those things. But I would like to save money. I'd like to get a car. I'd like to pay off my credit card bills. I'd like to have a savings account in case anything happens. I don't have an emergency savings fund. So I think sometimes it's worth sitting down with yourself and doing your best to be as honest with yourself as you possibly can and really figure out what your problems are, because that's going to be a lifestyle change that at this time it would be difficult for me to do. I could save a little bit of money here and there, but like to fully stop spending money as stupidly as I do, that's going to be a big change in my life. And I'm going to have to plan. I'm going to have to really put effort into it. And that's not something that sounds fun. You know what I mean? So I think some self-evaluation can really go a long way, but there's a good chance that you are lying to yourself even as you're evaluating. You're going to tell yourself things are a problem that aren't that big of a deal. You're going to tell yourself things that are a big problem or not actually problems. You're going to lie to yourself because you your mind wants to preserve itself as it is, you know? And if there's something in your that you've really been trying to change for a long time and you just can't bring yourself to do it, and you know it's something that you really want to change, then you need professional help. You need to seek professional help. I don't know what else to say. Like, there are ways out of everything. There are ways to change everything. Nothing is set in stone ever in anything. So don't lie to yourself and tell yourself that you're stuck the way you are, because you're not. I've dealt with serious mental health issues stemming mostly from borderline personality disorder and CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I had to do intensive therapy. I had to go through the same exact type of therapy 3 different times to get to where I am today. And, years ago, before I even started doing that, in my head, I was like, this is just how I am. There's nothing that I can do to change it. And that's just my life. But that's because I was scared to confront my issues. And I wasn't being honest with myself because I didn't know how bad it was going to get or how bad it could have gotten. So do your best to not stop lying to yourself, but you're going to lie to yourself. I don't know what else to say. I just want to talk about this. Let me know what you guys think. I put out a new video every Sunday. So if you like this video, you can come back next week for a new one. I'll see you then.